Today, I am talking to Claire Walker, CEO of Firefly Communications, a European PR agency. And our subject today is how outsourcing is affecting the PR industry and how she makes it work. So thank you very much for joining me, Claire.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So you run a PR agency in more than one country. That must be tricky enough.
Well, it sounds so glamorous, but being realistic, I get up at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning to go to Paris to be there for a 10 o'clock meeting. So it's not quite as glamorous as it sounds. It's very long days, but yes, we have offices in London and Paris and music, and there's a lot of communication between all those offices and quite a bit of travel as well.
So you've been in PR for quite some time, and you've probably seen the way people use PR agencies change a lot. Are we still in the days of please do me a press release and get me into a magazine?
Definitely, we are not still in those days, but it's surprising how we still have prospects or clients coming to us asking us, to put together something along those lines. And sometimes it just isn't the most efficient way of achieving their objectives. So we had a client come to us just recently with a big company with a fairly modest budget, and they asked us what would be most effective. And actually what was most effective was an entire campaign all around social media, because they needed to get straight through to people, and they needed downloads, and they needed lead generation. And actually for a quick campaign to achieve all of those objectives, digital is the best way forward. And then they were surprised that we weren't trying to piece it all together with, press briefings and press releases and things like that. And it just isn't appropriate.
So that's a big change, isn't it? Because digital marketing and all those sorts of things have very much affected what people expect a PR agency to do.
Well, and a lot of our work now is going, direct to these targets rather than actually going through the media or going through the bloggers. So yes, it's changed our outlook completely. I think there are some PR agencies out there who still focus very much on media, but we've been more than media for a very, very long time now. And, I see our future as becoming less reliant on media and more reliant on other ways to get through to the people we need to contact, which is directly decision makers.
So you're running teams in a minimum of 3 locations anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And do you also have freelancers on your team that you use for specific tasks or roles?
We do. And in fact, although we have our own offices in those 3 cities, we also have other agencies in other countries working for us as well. So we've got, our wholly owned offices, and then a whole load of, other organizations that are reporting into us on an ongoing basis. Now, on top of that, we've got a whole string of freelancers that we are working with as well. So, there's a combination here of our offices, our partner agencies, and a whole load of, independent workers. I think I'd prefer to call them independent workers rather than necessarily freelancers. But these are people who may be working from home. They're working online from us. They may be working on the French market, but they might be in Edinburgh. They could be anywhere, but they are assigned to a team in a city, but they might not be sitting in that city at that point in time.
That's quite a global way of working, because theoretically they could be anywhere. But in practice, do you work with people in vastly different time zones?
We work with a lot of companies in the States. We work with a lot of companies around Asia, and we've got a lot of partners that we're working with in Europe. So, we've got multiple time zones going on all the time. And it depends on the nature of the work that we're doing. Sometimes you can send messages and they can be left overnight for someone to respond to, in the morning. So we have to be very considerate of all the time zones, and we don't want to be insisting people come on conference calls at, 11 o'clock at night or 2 o'clock in the morning, because that's really not fair. But, sometimes actually it's really rather helpful having someone in another time zone, because you can get a piece of work done where someone's briefed you at 6 o'clock in the evening and you can have it ready for 9 o'clock the next morning. It's rare that something has to be sorted out that quickly, but on occasions it can be quite useful.
Brilliant. But I guess you have a no texting people in the middle of the night rule.
No, we don't. We don't. And text is probably the most immediate and urgent way of getting hold of someone, but they do tend to sort of beep at you in the most inappropriate moments. So I wouldn't say it's a rule, but people are very respectful. They will email to get hold of people because that is less intrusive. And if you really need someone urgently, then text is best.
Mm. So what do you look for when you're looking for an independent worker to join your team? Is there a kind of technological threshold before you even start with what can they do?
Well, there is, because somebody may want to work from home, and they may actually be not that far from a city, but the broadband access that they have might just not be good enough to do a conversation as we're doing a conversation today. You might not be able to have this sort of web chat. And actually, for us, we need to be on Google Hangouts, we need to be on Skype, we need to be on instant messengers. Sometimes we want to do FaceTime. There are a million different ways that we might want to communicate with people, but I do actually think face to face, even over a screen, is actually really important sometimes. So someone's got to have that sort of technology to be able to do it. If someone's got a terribly poor broadband connection, then I just don't think it's going to work. We need someone to be physically online. They don't have to be physically in our office, but they need to be physically online.
So in effect, people who live in very rural parts of England where the broadband is terrible are not currently able to access this kind of global way of working that is normal for you.
Well, it depends, because you might find that some parts of rural England have absolutely fantastic broadband, and you could be in a pocket of northwest London and have absolutely appalling broadband. I don't think it compares between city and country necessarily, but I have a friend who's recently moved to Hawaii, which is a very lovely place to live. But one of his one of the important criteria for selecting on which island to live was the fact that he wanted to have really fast, reliable broadband so he could work from there. And I think if you are moving somewhere with a view to working from home, these are the sorts of things that you could consider. Can I work from home? Do I have the resources I need to work from home? And you shouldn't be reliant on some broadband provider promising you super fast broadband. At some point in the future, you need to know when you move in that it's good and that it works. But this can even be a problem in a city. We held an event just recently where we were booking an event for a number of people to come together. Everyone was going to be online running. Actually, it's a crisis workshop. So we probably had about 60 people descending on this venue to log into 3 different Wi-Fi networks that they had to actually run this simulation crisis workshop. And their broadband fell over. So actually, even in the heart of London, if you've got a number of people all suddenly coming onto a network, it can fall over. But, we're talking about independent workers here, people working from home. Before you buy a house, make sure you've got great broadband if you want to work from home. Or if you've got teenagers, they'll put it on the criteria list for sure.
Absolutely, and test it. Don't rely on the broadband contract. So assuming your independent workers got the right technology, is there a difference in terms of how you manage or communicate with independent workers to the people that are your employed team? Do you look for different characteristics? Do you have different checks and balances?
Well, you do. You have to. I mean, you have to employ people who kind of know what they're doing, because what is quite hard to do over this medium is coach and train. So you need someone who is able to sort of operate, to a pretty high standard in their own right. So I think you need, quite an expert workforce who might be working independently, away from the office. You also need to have people who are quite independently minded, who aren't the sort of people that need to be around a whole crowd. And they should be motivated to want to be working on their own for most of the day. But having said that, we do make a really big effort to keep in contact with people over Skype and over this sort of medium to make sure people feel connected to the business. And we also ask that, perhaps every month at least, they come in and spend some time with us. A month is a really long time, but, at least every month they should pop in and have a day here, because I think that's the absolute minimum. But other than that, so long as they know what they're doing and they can keep up with the pace of work, so long as they are independently minded and they're okay working on their own, you can use mediums such as this to be in constant contact with people and to make them feel a part of the team.
That's brilliant. Now, some people who want to work independently from home don't want to be in constant contact. I work with a lot of women, for example, who want to be available 10 through 4, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and not Thursdays or whatever. That constant contact is the very last thing that they're actually wanting to offer. Are there limits to how chunked up workers' time can be? Is there a point when you go, that just can't work for me?
I think that, I can talk about what is relevant for my industry and what works and what doesn't work. And there are very different types of people who want to work from home. There are people who genuinely want to have the home as their workplace and they're properly set up with a desk and all of their things around them. There are other people who might be in the office a lot of the time but want to have the occasional work from home day. Now, those people can fall into different categories because they're not actually working from home at all. They might be at the hairdressers, on the golf course, or whatever their hobby might be, they might be doing it. These are the people that don't send an email, make a phone call, don't actually generate any content or generate any work. They're just reacting to things that happen to them. And they might not even be doing that terribly regularly either. I don't really classify that as someone who's spending the day working from home. So when people here work from home, they say what they're going to do during that day. I'm going to write this blog piece. I'm going to put these things together. I'm going to make all these phone calls. And then they report back to other people saying what they've achieved and how they've got on. And people can see them over Skype, so they know that they're there and they can see what they're doing. But it's the people who work at home and disappear for the day. I don't think that's really terribly fair on your colleagues. Having said that, the people who really do commit to working from home need to be quite clear about what their boundaries are so that everybody is understanding. And if, for example, a lot of people who work with have kids, they might be dropping the kids off at school. They can't get online till 10 o'clock. Not a problem. So long as everybody understands that, it's not a problem. They may have to stop work at 3 every day to go and get the kids and sort them out. That is not a problem as well, so long as people understand this. So if they're only available from 10 to 3, that's absolutely fine. It's not a problem so long as people are clear about their availability and they are available when they say they're going to be available, as you would walk up to somebody at their desk if you thought they were going to be in the office, that day. But in our industry, things tend to happen quite quickly and a lot can happen in a day or two. When you work with independent workers and they say, well, I can work Wednesdays, I have my Wednesdays free, I could do that for you. That's what's quite difficult for us as an agency, because we can't really collect up enough work to be just done on a Wednesday, because whatever you do on a Wednesday might get feedback from a client on a Thursday, or it might need to be sold in on a Friday or a Monday. So it's very difficult for us to think of someone's workload in just Wednesdays. So what we ask is for people to maybe have a day or two during the week where they're doing a fair chunk of things, but to be available at different times on other days, just to crunch through their emails so things aren't missed and so that they can sort of move things through. So we're looking for something, a little bit more even across a week rather than a big spike on a particular day.
Yes, and of course, for some people, the boundaries between work and home are completely blurred by working at home. They feel they should be checking their emails. They go the other way, even when they're not in their allocated hours. Have you had any issues with people finding it difficult to switch off as opposed to you not finding them on?
Yes, I think that could be taken in lots of different ways. The person who's sending emails at 4 o'clock in the morning and can be thought of by the team or by the client as unbelievably dedicated, or they can be seen as someone who's got a bit of a sleeping problem, or at worst they can be seen by someone as, this person has far too much work on for me. I don't want to be the client that they're thinking about at 4 o'clock in the morning. I want to be the client they're thinking about at 4 o'clock during the day. So I think people who take those working hours and stretch them consistently just a little bit too far don't always portray what they might be trying to communicate. They might be trying to communicate how dedicated they are, but sometimes it can actually come across as quite the opposite. But if I did see someone repeatedly online from if they were offline from 3 to 6 sorting out the kids after school, but if they were then online from 8 till 10, I'd be worried if that was time that they weren't being paid for. I'd also be worried if they were supposed to be doing those hours at other times, during the business day, because if you're online from 8 to 10, you're not actually giving people the opportunity to come back to you with some comments and have a little bit of a conversation, because maybe not other people are working from 8 till 10. So I think that there's got to be a commitment to be online enough during business hours so you can have a chat about things, and it's not just an email that waits a day and then you get a reply.
That's obviously something that two of you have to pursue, isn't it? The availability and how it's going to work. How long does it take you to get people into rhythm with what you need, assuming everything else works out?
I think most people, you sort out all of this, right at the beginning. It's a bit like a prenup. It might be uncomfortable, but you have to sort of sit down and think about all the ways it might go wrong and sort all of that out before you sort of get involved. I think the worst thing is to suddenly have a huge deluge of work and start running around trying to find people who can help you from every corner of the planet, and you just throw a team together and hope it's all going to be all right. We would not do that. We tend to have people who we work with, and we talk to them about these issues up front, and we sort it out, right at the beginning. And also what we do is we communicate with people, how much volume of work probably needs to be done over a period of time, so they can plan their days as well. So this is going to be a busy month, or that is going to be a busy week, so they can work themselves around it. It's not it's not feast or famine. So we plan ahead as much as we can.
So you're spending really a similar amount of time and effort managing your independent workers than you are your employed workers? Or
I think you probably need to make more effort, actually. It's easy for me to shuffle across the office and have a chat with one of the team here. It's slightly hard work, but it's, to be talking to people over a medium such as this. But I think you have to make even more effort to help people feel connected to the business and to help people kind of, manage themselves and manage their time. I think it's a bigger effort, but it's worth making if you've got this expert workforce out there supporting you, when you need their support. So, for example, on one particular client, you might say, okay, I need you to do, 10 hours a week. I need you to do, maybe 4 hours on this day, 4 hours on this day, and, a few hours either side of that to sort of keep on top of your emails and keep everything in check. And then you've just got to make sure with that person that you don't deluge them with a whole load of information that is not relevant to them, so that they can focus their time on that particular client and things that need to be done. There's probably a trap you can fall into, which is just being a little bit too inclusive and starting including people and, everything that is going on. But you've got to think more carefully about what it is they should be focused on, and don't bamboozle them with a whole load of information they don't need.
I sometimes think the reply to all function on email should be just blocked.
Yes, as the CC and as the BCC one, in my opinion. But yeah, people can be a bit over communicative sometimes. But is it better to be over communicative or under communicative? I mean, what's right? Everybody likes it different ways. Some people are just a bit too free to bring everybody else into the comments because they're so inclusive, and other people are perhaps a little bit more controlling into who sees what information. But so long as someone is thinking about it, and thinking about who really needs to see this information. Would it be helpful just as background for them to see this? Fine, well then send it to them. Just say just as background. And then someone's not scrolling through a great big long list of things looking for their actions. So being clear in your communication makes a big difference, I believe.
So looking forward with your business, do you anticipate, as you continue to expand and grow, that independent workers will form an integral part of that growth as you go forward?
Oh yes, it's in our business plan, actually. It's in our business plan to still keep a lot of the day-to-day client contact, within the office that we have here, but to have an ever-growing number of independent workers supporting our business. And, over the years, and I've been running Firefly for nearly 30 years now, I have come across this enormous sea of talent, of wonderful people, many of them women, many of them now at home with kids. Many of them would be delighted to, work from 10 till 3 or 10 till 2 or something like that. And, if you can harness that talent and if people can help, that's a huge benefit to an industry that is chronically short of skills. the the twist in all of that is it's all very well in the term time, but then what happens in the holidays? Because although kids are off school for long periods of time, which will compromise a lot of those workers, business carries on. So you've got to somehow or other manage to balance all of that out in terms of people's availability, and time. So you're not suddenly running a skeleton staff from early July through to the beginning of September when everyone's on summer holidays. These are things that need to be thought through, in advance. So you've got to balance the type of workers that you have on any particular account to make sure you're not suddenly caught out.
Well, it sounds as if you've given your outsourcing plan, if you like, your independent workers plan, a great deal of thought, and you give it a great deal of time. What's your number one top tip for making that relationship work if you're going to go down that route?
I think you are incredibly reliant on the technology. And I think, you've got to help people find the right technology, know how to work the programs, and it all becomes very, very easy. But this technology becomes a lifeline. And if that's not working, people can very quickly feel disconnected. So I think, however you do it, just keep those communication lines open. And just because someone is out of sight, never, ever allow them to be out of mind. So you've got to be constantly thinking about them and working hard to bring them into the fold. And they've got to be constantly thinking about how they can be involved and in communication as well. And you've got to make that happen. Even when broadband goes down, you've got to make that happen by picking up the phone.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Claire Walker. My name's Annabelle Kay from Coffee Clatch, and I've been talking to Claire Walker, CEO of Firefly Communications, about what it takes to make working with freelancers and independent workers really work. Thank you so much for your time, Claire. I really appreciate you sharing your information with us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Annabelle.
Thank you.